Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 spoilers. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Tessa is rejected by Mariah and Noah purposefully caused his accident. The Young and the Restless Thursday, October 16th, 2025 episode went as follows. The Young and the Restless events. On The Young and the Restless, Sharon sobs to Nick. Danny and Christine talked about their wedding's finishing touches, with Christine's outfit remaining the largest obstacle. Nearly everything was prepared for their special day. Even though it was wearing Danny out, Lauren was helping her choose the ideal gown. Their bachelor and bachelorette parties were the last item on the schedule, and Daniel, Danny's son, would not be attending. They're also slightly concerned that Daniel won't make it to the wedding. Phyllis complained that she was not invited when she heard them talking about the wedding. She wondered why she was the last to find out. Danny stated that he was unable to contact her, despite his desire to personally inform her about the wedding. But Christine growled at Phyllis, saying that she was fortunate to have any warning at all. Danny explained the postponed announcement by pointing to Phyllis's recent involvement in Kane's business activities. When Phyllis was giddy about her career, Christine said, "The 137th time's the charm." Phyllis and Christine had a typical conversation in which the redhead joked that she wanted to throw rice at the wedding. But Christine told her that this was an antiquated custom that would hurt birds. Does it also eliminate bugs? Phyllis joked. Phyllis didn't want to go to the wedding, but Christine wanted her as far away as possible. She didn't understand why Danny would waste his time with Christine. Phyllis claimed that although she didn't mind not being invited, the marriage wouldn't endure. Although Phyllis believed Christine was dedicated for the long run, she didn't think Danny was, and she assumed he would get tired soon. Christine remembered that Phyllis had lived alone for the majority of her life and had never had a committed relationship. But according to Phyllis, she visited their table out of good faith. Although she expressed regret for her behavior, she believed Christine was still insecure about things pertaining to her. Phyllis was unable to refrain from insulting Christine further, and she hinted that their relationship might end before they even arrived at the chapel. According to Christina, Phyllis was too self-centered to give her all to anyone. The idea of them actually getting married made Phyllis nauseous. While Danny and Christine reveled in all the reasons they fell in love, Phyllis sat in disdain. Phyllis thought the kisses between the soon-to-be newlyweds were merely for show. She stated, "Maybe because you're trying so hard to convince me, or convince yourself, I don't know. It's just noise. Anyway, no one, least of all me, wants to watch this tired show, let alone stay for an encore." Cricket was obviously shaken, but Danny was pleased of the way Christine handled Phyllis at the time. Christine's doubts were successfully stoked by bringing up the fact that Phyllis had previously gotten in the way of their relationship. Danny promised Christine that their wedding would be fantastic and that he was more in love with her than ever. Mariah was receiving therapy at the clinic when Tessa showed up. Tessa said she missed her wife much, but Mariah was shocked to find her there. Even though she thought Mariah would say no, she thanked her for agreeing to the visit. Mariah had failed to show up on her first 2 visits, but Tessa mentioned that this was her 3rd visit. Given that Mariah wasn't prepared the previous times, she questioned why this time was different. The quiet was overwhelming as Mariah sat and gazed at Tessa. Tessa was perplexed as to why Mariah hadn't left the building to utilize any of her free time. She was unable to understand how Mariah was able to overcome her issues while confined and without sunlight. Mariah didn't have to talk if she didn't want to, but she wouldn't go, Tessa replied. As Tessa and Mariah began playing cards, she reiterated that Mariah was not need to speak. She wanted them to bond over their daughter's favorite game and spend time together. Mariah took Tessa up on the invitation to play, and she picked up her cards. Although Tessa begged Mariah to leave the facility in time to attend Danny and Christine's wedding, Mariah said that Daniel and Tessa sounded extremely wonderful together. Mariah didn't believe it was feasible, reminding Mariah that she was the most courageous and strong person she had ever met. Tessa likened her to the Queen of Hearts. Seeing Mariah deteriorate in that facility broke her heart. Tessa promised to get Mariah out of there and bring her home, regardless of how she felt about it. Mariah desired to stay in order to investigate the reasons behind her self-check-in. She needed to work hard in order to overcome her depression. Mariah buried her heels in the sand and promised Tessa that she would remain there until the end. It wasn't working for Tessa to see Mariah and be powerless to assist. Tessa was instructed to stop visiting after telling Mariah this. They gave one another a tearful embrace, and although Tessa found solace in the embrace, Mariah remained still. After Mariah went, Tessa was alone with a stream of tears and ripped up the Queen of Hearts. In the hopes of a miracle, Sharon and Nick stayed by Noah's bedside and talked to him. A hospital was not on their list of things to do during a visit, Nick joked. When she joked that Noah was too busy to be a tour guide, Sharon's anxiety was at its height. Nick stated that Noah needed time to heal from his wounds. Though she wasn't sure if he could hear her, Sharon reminded Noah that she and Nick weren't leaving. Victor, Victoria, and Nikki called Nick to give him an update. They talked to Noah on speaker and informed them of the severity of his injuries. At last, the doctor showed up prepared to give the family a much-needed update. Nick hung up to talk to the doctor when the family heard him come in. He preferred speaking with them outside, away from Noah's bed. The head trauma caused Noah's brain to enlarge, the surgeon observed. To lessen the swelling, the hospital staff put Noah into a medically induced coma. It was yet another reminder of Cassie, and Sharon started crying. Sharon was reassured by Nick that what had happened to Cassie would not happen again. The doctor ignored Nick's pleas to allay Sharon's anxieties and instead led with the facts. Although he was unable to comment on their encounter with Cassie, it would be the wisest and safest course of action to put Noah in a coma. Nick didn't think there was time to wait, even if Sharon insisted that Victor bring in a special. A nurse showed up with Noah's personal items after he had calmed Sharon down. But both anxious parents broke down emotionally once they found the watch they had purchased for him for his graduation. The Newman family back in Genoa City felt that the situation was worse than they had initially assumed. Victoria warned them against Nikki and Nikki's plans to travel to Los Angeles to be with their kid. When Nick called his family to give them the most recent information, he confirmed that the prognosis was not good. Nikki wanted to run to be with them when Victor asked about the treatment plan. Nick also emphasized the necessity of Victor's presence to repel any possible cane attacks. If his father could locate the best brain physician, he inquired. Victor wanted to know if Nick didn't trust the doctors who were actively caring for Noah. By acknowledging that he will eventually need her, Nick allayed Nikki's fears. But there was no need to go out there until there was more official news. Reminding her brother that they were all thinking of him and supporting him during this trying time, Victoria spoke from the heart. Victoria feared what would happen to Noah. As a result, Nikki wanted a family member to attend as a representative. Recalling that Claire was also in Los Angeles, Victoria texted her to invite her to join her uncle. But Nikki expressed concern that they wouldn't be able to handle a situation similar to Cassie's again. Additionally, she stated that she couldn't endure another death in her family. A detective showed up in the waiting area with inquiries regarding Noah's collision while they were taking a trip down memory lane about Noah's early years. Nick got right to the point when he indicated he was looking into what had transpired. If they suspected foul play, he insisted on knowing. Someone intentionally ran Noah off the road and kept driving, the detective disclosed. This was no coincidence. Noah was left unconscious and struggling to survive by someone who acted willfully and negligently. Who was responsible for Noah's mishap? Could a plot line on The Young and the Restless develop in which Holden was held accountable for Noah's mishap? Supporters are wondering if this is possible. Was Noah's mishap on The Young and the Restless caused by Holden? The Young and the Restless. Intruders or too many Vespers with Claire. In an attempt to find any link between Holden and the horrific accident that happened to Noah, fans of The Young and the Restless have been dissecting the program. Nick and Sharon learned that Noah had been hospitalized following an incident and required emergency surgery, when it was found that he had brain swelling. Was this the outcome of someone trying to harm him on purpose? It's very difficult for Nick and Sharon to not know how their son is doing and to hope he will survive, especially now that Detective Burrows has declared an investigation is in progress. According to a witness, Noah's automobile swerved and veered off the road after being struck by another vehicle. The reason for this was hotly debated by soap enthusiasts on the soap central message boards. Nick and Sharon at Noah's bedside, the young and the restless, wrote, "I don't like the direction this S/L is taking, but I believe Holden had something to do with Noah's accident. Are they trying to insinuate that Noah is involved in something untoward? This looks to be heading in that direction. In addition, I wonder if Noah discussed starting a new club with Sienna and Mitch. Perhaps they attempted to assassinate him because they believed he would be a rival. All I know is that every S/L I've thought would have some genuine drama so far has ended up being an animated cartoon with Bluto and Popeye. I wouldn't be shocked if this also lets me down." Added, "I concur. It's rather clear that some dubious activities are taking on here. I'm beginning to have similar questions. I believe that Holden and Claire are to blame for his mishap." Shared his thoughts. "Yeah, the hatred for Holden is confusing to me. He's attractive, pleasant, and incredibly smooth. Before I learned what had happened to Damien, I was truly unhappy that he wasn't the real Damien. I'm willing to wager that Sienna was involved. Otherwise, there would be no purpose in capturing her on video. Parents Nick and Sharon are going to have a difficult week, regardless of whether Holden is to blame for the incident." What do you suppose transpired with Noah? One of those infrequent episodes of The Young and the Restless that simultaneously managed to create tension and break hearts was the one that aired on Thursday. Emotions ran high as Mariah Copeland and Tessa Porter faced the deteriorating remnants of their once unshakable marriage on one side of Genoa City and beyond in Los Angeles. On the other hand, when the truth of Noah's terrible accident started to come to light, Sharon and Nick Newman were faced with the greatest nightmare a parent could have. Everyone was left reeling after what started as a day of excitement for Christine and Danny's wedding devolved into a psychological and emotional battleground, demonstrating once more how no plot in The Young and the Restless remains quiet for very long. Mariah's agonizing rejection of Tessa was at the center of it all. It was such a visceral moment that it set a new low for one of the most adored couples on the program. Tessa's hope was brittle but resolute when she got to the clinic. She had faith that love, their love, would somehow break through the ice and reunite her with Mariah. But she discovered that the woman seated across from her was a shadow of the Mariah she had known. Mariah, who had once been feisty, humorous, and fiercely loyal, had withdrawn behind imperceptible barriers, her voice sparse, her eyes far away. Tessa's entrance was greeted with silent resignation rather than relief or happiness. Not only was their silence uncomfortable, but it was deafening, a metaphor for how far they had drifted apart. Despite Tessa's repeated visits to the clinic and her wife's refusal to meet her, she had been excluded from Mariah's recuperation for weeks. The encounter felt more like closure than reconciliation now that Mariah had finally agreed. Tessa tried everything: humor, kindness, and even a deck of cards that would bring back memories of game nights with their daughter and help them reconnect. She commented about how much she missed Mariah's laughing, music, and their house. However, Mariah refused to leave the barriers she had erected and remained dispassionate and frigid. Love itself felt like a foreign language to her because of the agony of postpartum depression, loss, and self-doubt. In a last-ditch effort to recover what had been lost, Tessa's voice faltered as she informed Mariah that she would take her home whether or not she wanted to. But Mariah told her no, quietly and firmly. She wasn't prepared. She had to remain, to get better, to delve into the shadows that prompted her to voluntarily check in. It was a painful realization that Mariah was rejecting Tessa's life, not the person, until she recovered. When Tessa understood that love, no matter how pure, couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved, her eyes welled up with tears. Tessa was left holding the Queen of Hearts, a representation of the powerful, fervent lady she had known. As Mariah exited, her posture rigid and her expression blank, in a tacit admission that the chapter of As Fans Knew It Was over, at least for the time being, Tessa tore the card up in one last act of anguish, letting the fragments fall on the table like confetti. It was love falling apart in real time, and the sound of that rip was more heartbreaking than any argument. Sharon and Nick, meanwhile, sat impotently at their son's hospital bedside, battling their own emotional breakdown. Halfway across Los Angeles, a straightforward appointment had devolved into a nightmare. Sharon held to Noah's hand, begging for any sign of life, while the hospital room's sterile walls felt oppressive. In an effort to shield Sharon from her escalating anguish, Nick tried to remain strong, but his voice carried a heavy burden of anxiety as he made unlucky jokes. It was hard to overlook the similarities to Cassie's passing years prior. Sharon felt as though fate was mocking her more and more as she attempted to convince herself that history wouldn't happen again. The reality struck hard when the doctor arrived. Noah had experienced serious damage that had caused swelling in his brain. Sharon was devastated by the choice to put him in a medically induced coma. Although they were a resilient family, the news came as a tidal wave. Victoria, Nikki, and Victor called in right away, offering to fly out and demanding updates. Nick, however, who was caught between optimism and pessimism, advised them to remain where they were until there was actual advancement. Nevertheless, something about the circumstance felt off, and Victoria's mother instincts took over. The accident didn't set right with anyone, and soon their worst assumptions were confirmed. Detective Burroughs's tone was cool but collected when he came to talk to Sharon and Nick. He wasn't present for a standard interrogation. Because Noah's accident wasn't an accident at all, he was present. Noah had been purposefully run off the road, and the perpetrator had escaped. What little serenity Sharon still had was destroyed by the revelation. Her son was the object of someone's deliberate evil, not the victim of unfortunate fate. Although he did not provide specifics, the detective acknowledged that a witness observed another vehicle strike Noah's, sending it crashing into a ditch. Like a death knell, the words "foul play" reverberated around the room. Sharon thought of all the potential suspects right away, but rumors going throughout Genoa City and on fan sites suggested one: Holden Novak. From the beginning, Holden's entrance in town had been shrouded in mystery, his charm and easygoing manner concealing a darker side. His relationship with Claire Grace Newman may not be as innocent as it seemed, according to fan speculation. Was Noah a potential threat to Holden's career or personal life? Others speculated that the incident may have been planned by Sienna, another person from Holden's inner circle, to displace Noah as a rival in the nightlife industry. Whatever the reason, one thing was certain. Noah's collision marked the start of something considerably more significant. The involvement of Detective Burroughs and the accuracy of the punch indicated preparation rather than anger. This was a message, not a crime of passion. The emotional toll on Nick and Sharon was nearly intolerable as they stood over their son's lifeless body. Sharon sobbed into Nick's chest and admitted that she was unable to lose another child. Coughing back his own emotions, Nick vowed that this time would be different and that he would do everything it took to keep Noah safe. But as the camera shifted to Noah's unmoving face, the weight of that vow hung in the air. The repercussions started to spread back in Genoa City. Never one to stand by and do nothing. Victor was already organizing resources to identify the attacker. Victoria's intuition informed her that this wasn't random and that someone wanted to hit the Newman family where it hurt the most, while Nikki's dread became resolve. In the meantime, the link between Mariah's mental breakdown and Noah's tragedy began to take shape. Two siblings who are tragic mirror images of one another, one having been lost in a physical way and the other spiritually. The young and the restless skillfully combined two plot lines of love, grief, and retaliation by the end of the episode. While Noah's accident revealed a sinister new mystery that has the potential to upend the Newman family, Mariah's rejection of Tessa represented the end of a love story based on music and healing. In one scenario, a woman was attempting to recover from emotional trauma. In the other, parents were battling to learn the truth about a violent incident. Together, they built a vision of a world where love is frail, fidelity is challenged, and fate, as always in Genoa City, is as cruel as it is seductive.